You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We've got a couple of things that we are keeping track of. I know the reason you tuned in this evening was the exciting 5th anniversary of January 6th coverage, and we will get to that. Please try to remain on the edge of your seats just a bit longer. We're actually keeping track of some real news, that being that the Islamic regime in Iran has now lost complete control of one of its most western cities, Abdanan. The anti-regime protesters have taken full control of the city, which is right up near the border of Iraq. It's parallel with Baghdad, if for some reason you know exactly where Baghdad is in Iraq. So again, keep that situation top of mind. If there are any updates, we will let you know as soon as we are aware. Another thing we're keeping an eye on, the 7th Circuit has ruled that the Satanic Temple does not have any standing to challenge Indiana's ban on abortion under the First Amendment. So it's a fantastic day because the tears of the whining Satanists are sure to make any normal individual with an IQ over about 15 just thrilled with joy. Now, moving on, let's talk about some of the biggest news that is coming out. That is, the President of the United States has not directed the Department of Justice and other federal agencies to investigate the state of California and its governor, Gavin Newsom. No, the president revealed that the federal government and several of its agencies are in the midst of a series of probes on Governor Gavin Newsom and the state of California. He sent out a tweet this morning, or a truth, as it were, saying, California, under Governor Gavin Newsom, is more corrupt than Minnesota, if that's possible. The fraud investigation of California has begun. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. And this got people, well, not exactly excited, because this was kind of expected. After Governor Tim Walz, whom we're going to get to in just a couple of seconds, presided over the biggest fraudulent scheme in the country, a lot of Americans scratched their chins and said, I wouldn't have pegged Minnesota to be the blue state that was the most rank with fraud. That might be in underneath J.B. Pritzker's glorious buffet of Chicago-style politics, or yes, Governor Gavin Newsom. Here are a couple of the things that are currently feeling the excitement of federal probes into fraud investigation. Multiple reports detailing tens of billions of dollars in alleged fraud and waste in California state agencies. A state auditor in California identified 8 different agencies. 8 different agencies involved in fraud totaling tens of billions of dollars, including $32 billion. How did we get here so quickly? We went from, a couple of $100 million, $1 billion, $10 billion, $18 billion, $32 billion in COVID-19 unemployment insurance fraud, $24 billion lost on homelessness programs, $18 billion lost on, you guessed it, the failed high-speed rail project that has no tracks. Not because of any new technology. They invested all this money in this high-speed rail project and then just forgot the rails and instead spent it on French Laundry or some Chinese spies or, a third marriage or something. So then $76 billion overall in total waste and fraud, plus, you guessed it, $650 million wasted on a completely non-functional 911 system. Of all of the systems to be non-functional, going to level with you, the 911 system may be something that is perhaps the worst thing to have non-functional. That would be like turning on the fire hydrant in the Palisades fire and going, wow, there's no water here because we gave it away for equitable minnow relocation or other exciting schemes. Oh, that's just one of the main things that California is facing federal probes over. Of course, the Department of Transportation is currently investigating California for issuing over 17,000 commercial driver's licenses to foreign nationals that do not have U.S. legal status. A number of safety risks. Today, there was yet another accident caused by a foreign national in California who tried to park his semi across the interstate the wrong way, like every driver does. And then, of course, the federal government getting ready to potentially freeze quite a bit on the transportation side. And then, of course, Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson, $225,000 bank fraud, wire fraud scheme. There's a question as to how much Newsom knew about this. So how is the governor actually responding to this? How is he reacting to this? I had to double check the time and the date stamping for this. Gavin Newsom has gone out in front of the public and has whined from his official accounts that it is Trump's fault that things are not being rebuilt in California after the wildfires. Here you go.
Where are we at in the recovery effort?
We've made tremendous progress, the fastest debris removal in American history, at least modern American history, in 6 months, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, working with FEMA. They did an exceptional job. And I will say this, to be fair, Donald Trump did not get in the way of that. But that process began under President Biden. I was president at the time. We established the contracts. We established the major disaster declaration. I can't even conceive, had this happened under the Trump administration, we would still be debating which one of his contractors he would send out to do the debris removal, which one.
So it is a fun fact here. The president of the United States, either in his first term or now, has never delayed anything whatsoever or supplied personal contractor suggestions in this way. No, not even close. Additionally, I will remind you that while certain Ghana flight-bound mayors of Los Angeles, of the Karen variety, approved 3 or 4 building permits since the fires, 3 or 4 building permits since the fires, that Florida rebuilt several highway bridges and entire communities in 15 days after a hurricane. So if we're talking about leadership styles here, so far he's saying, wow, the rebuilding effort's going really well. We're not actually doling out any, building permits, and sure, FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers is doing all the work, but Donald Trump, he probably would be bad, maybe, sort of, I think.
Was connected to the larger construct of the administration. So we were able to move forward very effectively in those first 6 months. We put out a detailed plan, a master plan for removal, a vision for the future.
They have missed every single one of the map for the future dates. By this date, we'll be doing this. By this date, we'll achieve this. They have missed every single one of those deadlines. It's like a junior high student trying to turn in a remake paper or a remake test, missing deadlines left and right. It's embarrassing.
Of the region. We did that at the 6-month mark. And we continue to wait for a simple response, just the dignity of a response from Donald Trump himself.
What is he supposed to do? I thought you just said that FEMA, breaking news, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they answer to the President of the United States. What do you mean you're waiting for Trump? What to say? I really like the timeline you put out, Gavin Newsom. It's got bullet points. It's laminated. Did you know that, Marco? It's incredible. Very well done, Gavin. I think I'm going to put it next to Joe Biden's auto pen photograph. Well done. Never seen anything like it before. No, what in the world is this? Well, of course, we know exactly what it is. Currently, the situation in California has become so bad, it has become so egregious regarding the fraud, that now the New York Post, on the other end of the coast, the other side of the country, is now showing $250 billion in fraud that Gavin Newsom is highly likely to be linked to, after Republican candidates have scoured through all of these whistleblower tips that have been sent in by local and state officials in California. So Steve Hilton running for governor, Herb Morgan seeking the state comptroller job, findings from this tip line investigation for Califraudia. I wish I was the one who came up with that. Unfortunately, I'm not. The Golden State's bloated welfare system, in which, I know this will shock many of you out there, their education and their state-funded healthcare systems doled out a ton of aid that included federal grant money to people who have no business whatsoever receiving that aid. That is fraud under federal law in multiple ways, shapes, and forms. Now, we're going to send the radio crew off to commercial because Gavin Newsom, he's excited, but he's excited about one guy, at least yesterday. He's put his reputation on the line for one very important person. So live stream crew, we're going to continue. Radio crew, see you in a minute. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, hang on, you may say. Who would Gavin Newsom put his entire reputation on the line for? Tim Walz. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. He said yesterday afternoon, quote, "Tim Walz is a man of character, strength, and compassion. He has served Minnesota with heart and dignity." Yeah, that's right. Sometimes people only serve with heart. Sometimes they only serve with dignity. Tim Walz, he's got both. Minnesota and America is better off thanks to his lifelong public service. You know, like when he lied about his military service or his coaching career or his ability to competently load a shotgun. Wishing him all the best in this next chapter. Thank you at Tim_Walz. Brave. Amazing. You think Tim Walz, who again have just announced that he's not running for re-election, this has got to be pretty incredible. He's got to be excited. Huge news, one might say. Well, Tim Walz is just melting down. And I'm not saying it like the online way or where he looks stressed and there's going to be a picture from the New York Times with like sweat trickling down his flabby face. No. Tim Walz, he's having a rough one because he's been linked to all of this fraud in Minnesota. So who's he taking it out on? The independent journalist who exposed the very community that he's so ding-dang-dong proud of, the Somali migrant community. Here's Tim Walz excitedly going after Nick Shirley today.
We've got conspiracy theorist right-wing YouTubers breaking into our daycares, demanding access to our children.
Breaking into our daycares. Who? Name some names there, Home Slice. What are you talking about breaking into our... There's only one daycare that has been broken into. And based on the cuts in the drywall, the daycare broke into itself to steal its documents. Who are you mad at here? It just seems like, look, there you can see the shininess of the forehead. The man is sweating. He's very nervous here. Federal probes.
We've got the President of the United States demonizing our Somali neighbors.
Why? What would there be to demonize? Is he demonizing their skin color? No. Is he demonizing the shape of like their heritage? No. What's he demonizing? Is it perhaps the cultural values they hold? Like fraud and stealing and violence that they still carry over here into the United States after immigrating from Somalia, a perfectly peaceful country? And
wrongfully confiscating funds that Minnesotans rely on.
Why would he confiscate funds? Where were the funds going to, Tim Walz?
It's disgusting and it's dangerous.
Okay.
Republicans are playing politics with the future of this state.
I love that so much. I love that. Republicans are playing politics. This political party is being political. That's unacceptable. I ran on being super law enforcement man, and then it turned out I was really bad at it. And not only was I really bad at it, I got caught. And now Republicans are saying maybe Democrats aren't so good at the whole governing thing. Those meanies, I can't stand it. Well, he's also upset because Immigration Customs Enforcement, at the direction of the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, sent 2,000 Immigration Customs Enforcement agents into the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities area. By the way, in case you were curious, here's what that looked like. Upholding federal law, having to go in and do the work themselves because the Minnesota State Police, Keith Allison, the Attorney General, isn't doing anything. Minnesota, we're here. Homeland Security, and kind of an Adult Swim edit, which I enjoy that. That's good. That's good media. Well, Tim Walz is also very upset about this. Again, don't chug a Celsius and a brandy or whatever Michelob Light Ultra Tim Walz likely drinks before you get up and do a press conference. It's not good. Kamala Harris couldn't do it. You shouldn't do it either, buddy.
Their idea of improving this state is being a parrot for Donald Trump, agreeing to everything that he agreed with. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you.
Agreeing with what? Like that you shouldn't steal federal funds? I also like how he has gone to the Gavin Newsom school of hand gestures. They want to be parrots. He's doing like Richard Simmons and up and two. I love it. Tim Walz, man, energetic Tim Walz, exciting stuff.
It ain't happening.
It ain't happening.
I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body.
Oh, geez. Muscle man. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. More of Tim Walz' definitely not dead political career in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Tim Walz, man, he's tough as nails over his dead body. He's not running for re-election, but he's not going to resign either. I mean, now that's some mental math. For the radio crew, you got to hear that. Tim Walz, man, he's laying it down on the line over his dead body. He macho man.
Their idea of improving this state is being a parrot for Donald Trump, agreeing to everything that he agreed with. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. It ain't happening. I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen?
You can make any requests over my dead body. Will that happen? And how it is. And then
I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better.
I will fight federal probes into fraud until the very end. Okay, that's a move.
And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign?
When will Donald Trump resign? Well, see, unlike you, he won the 2024 election. He didn't do that. He doesn't need, Tim Walz didn't do any of the winning in 2024. Additionally, no Somali migrant community fraud, Donald Trump style investments. I mean, I know. Maybe we can dig up the foundations and see if golden Trump lettering is written across the Quality Luring Center. I don't think so. But anywho, I will say this: he does get a serious question asked that he immediately tosses to the side, and look at where he pivots to. It's really great. It's really great stuff.
Did you make the decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic allies?
So the question asked: did you decide to resign yourself, or did Ken Martin, the current chair of the DNC and also the former chairman of the Minnesota Democrat Farmer Labor Party, call you and say, dude, you're embarrassing us. Freaking stop. We'll run anyone. We'll run Amy Klobuchar. Get her to stop beating her staff long enough to run for office. Just please resign. That's the question the reporter asks. Will Tim Walz answer it? Survey says...
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And certainly, I think, as I said, it's the right decision.
You should hear what his daughter has to say about his particular fraud. She says there's truth to the fraud. So if that's a decision you make, Dad, you really did some illegal stuff, dude. I don't know if I'd admit that.
I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras.
Why are they not coordinating with you? Is it their choice or is it your choice? You said, I stay out of Minnesota. Attorney General Keith Allison, who was also one of the possible candidates for governor, said that he wouldn't allow any Minnesota state agency to work with Immigration Customs Enforcement. So they're not coordinating, they're just here. Well, yeah, they're federal law enforcement. Now, if you have a Fort Sumter to run to, you can tell the federal law enforcement to beat it. It may not go the way that you think it will.
I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that.
So that puts Tim Walz up for a defamation lawsuit. Donald Trump led an insurrection. That brings us to the exciting January 6th shenanigans. It is now the 5th year from January 6, 2021, and Democrats with nothing to run on in 2026. Because it's midterms year, guys. It's go time. It's time to do the things, time to do the stuff. A lot on the line. People want things to happen. They're ready for the economy to lift off. They're ready for the United States to, well, we're going to get to the polling data in a second. The public has some opinions regarding the Venezuelan situation. Tim Walz says, hey, but I know you have some questions about why I'm choosing to resign in the middle of a fraud, or why I'm choosing not to run again in the middle of every fraud investigation from every federal department out there, except for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which no longer exists. I know you're concerned about that, but January 6th is today. Hillary Clinton tried the same thing, by the way, and said Donald Trump led an insurrection against the Capitol. No. In court and out of court, that has been proven false. Very likely hitting some defamatory stuff. You can't just get out there and say he did something that he clearly didn't do. You've been trying this for years. Now, this brings us to the most exciting of things. The most exciting of things. The Democratic platform for 2026. We're going to shut the January 6th stuff aside. I know we could talk a little bit about Chuck Schumer and, we could get excited over the Democrats singing God Bless America out of tune and like they don't like God. So it hurts. We'll get to that. I promise. We'll tackle the January 6th. I know, just edge of your seats a little bit longer. I do want to share with you the platform for 26, the good stuff that matters, because there are some big candidates that are running this year. And some candidates are very open about why they are running for office. Jasmine Crockett running for the Senate in Texas. She has a message. She's got a plan. And here Jasmine Crockett, I'm not even going to give you any more intro. She says it perfectly herself.
Minority state. So for everybody, it's like, well, she running for Senate and she black. Yes, I am. I am. Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 million black voters.
Actually, 4.
Right? 4 million.
So let's review. I'm running for Senate and I'm black. Now, again, different new black accent. Kind of like the Southern drawl, like 1890s Southern drawl. Maybe Southern. Your Honor, if you look over here to the jury, you will not. So we're getting the kind of Southern gentleman lawyer accent in, a new one, exciting, excellent Jasmine Crockett, getting, diversifying. So again, to review, she's running for Senate and she's black. Solid platform. Solid platform. Exciting to see where this one goes. On the flip side, the Democrat platform is all built around healthcare. Healthcare. They're saying Republicans, they're mean, they're stinky, they don't give you free healthcare. Ever since Republicans created Obamacare. They've been hating you over your healthcare. How dare they? And so they are running candidates on universal healthcare, like Liban Mohammed, a Democrat Somali Muslim running for Congress in Utah. I just want to share with you his campaign announcement.
Utah leads the nation in charitable giving. Yet our leaders take us for granted.
Why does Utah lead the nation in charitable giving? Have you ever wondered this? Why does Utah lead the nation in charitable giving? Because of 2 reasons. Number 1, the Church of Latter-day Saints is ridiculously generous. The Mormons have a phenomenal work ethic, and they are wildly charitable. That's the core reason why that is. And also, it has rubbed off on a lot of the other prevalent denominations in Utah. That is why. Now, if you want to ask the man who is a Democrat Somali Muslim running for Congress in Utah, why is it not Minnesota that leads the country in charitable giving? Why are the Somali migrant communities not doling out tons of charity? Well, they are. It's just to Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
For far too many Utahns, the American dream is slipping away. Corporations are pricing us out of our own homes. Raising a family is more expensive than ever. And even though we spend more money on healthcare than any nation on earth, nearly
we don't, by the way.
300,000 Utahns are left without health coverage.
300,000 Utahns. Notice he doesn't say citizens, just Utahns are left without health coverage. So he proposes universal taxpayer-funded childcare and universal taxpayer-funded healthcare. The Somali Democrat candidate for Utah wants taxpayer-funded, no accountability, universal childcare, and healthcare. Radio crew, we're going to send you back to commercial for a minute. We're going to continue on the live stream. Exciting stuff for this platform. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. I will say that it is a certain sense of poetic justice that as the Democrats were going to come out in front of the country and claim to be the masters of universal healthcare, all of these schemes are being revealed from Washington State to California to Utah to Minnesota, all the way out to Massachusetts, back through to Ohio, in which state and federally funded grant-assisted healthcare programs in childcare and in Medicare and Medicaid are rife with fraud, especially to migrant communities, whether they be Haitian or Somalian. Gee, I'm not surprised. You're not surprised. But here they are running on this. Now, there's some other fun stuff regarding the Somalia UN ambassador. We're going to get back to him in a little bit. I know I mentioned Ohio. The Somali ambassador to the United Nations is connected with a fraudulent Medicaid scheme in Ohio because, of course, he is. But we'll get back to that in a little bit because Chuck Schumer is really, really sad. Because the Democrats, they've got this one beautiful message to Americans, and it's a platform that's split into three things. Well, two things, but three things if you're Jasmine Crockett. If you're Jasmine Crockett, number one is I'm black. Exciting. But a lot of people in the Democrat Party aren't black. So they don't get to run with that, probably. The trans-racial stuff never really took off. But if you're not Elizabeth Warren and you're not Jasmine Crockett and you can't say I'm black or Native American, then number one, give us free money for healthcare and childcare that totally won't be fraudulent, we promise. And number two, defend and support any dictator because they despise the United States acting on the world stage. So Chuckles Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, he waddled out in front of the public today after the president's office briefed the Senate Armed Services Committee over the actions taken in Venezuela, capturing Maduro. Again, incredible stuff. Schumer walks out in front of the cameras, and he just sounds like droopy, sad, depressed dog on the worst, darkest day. Here you go.
I asked for some assurances that they were not planning operations in other countries, and I named a few of the ones you mentioned, including Colombia and Cuba, and I was very, very disappointed in their answer. Thank you, everybody.
There you go. There you go. That's Chuck Schumer. He's like, I asked them, do you promise that you're not going to be awesome anywhere else? And they said, no, we're not going to reveal to a body that leaks like a sieve places that we also might strike. Do you remember how many Americans that got killed during the Obama administration or the Biden administration? When you would leak all of this information out and it would get U.S. soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, guardians killed? How about no? Chuck's very, very, very angry about that. And there's really not even any cohesion inside the party over this. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, he recognizes that if he goes out and he slams the United States military, it's going to look real ugly real quick. So he tries a little backhand sneakery that Chuck Schumer didn't do, completely in opposition to Ken Martin's DNC strategy, which is a little busy with Tim Walz not running for re-election. So Warner comes out there and says, I really like the military, but I really don't like Trump.
Chuck, let me also say one of the things that came out of the briefing yesterday was how extraordinary our military has been.
That should be it. It should be like John Fetterman, that you should stop right there and say, they're extraordinary, they're excellent, they're great. And then you should just walk away. By the way, rebuilding trust in our institutions, the CIA and the FBI did good work in Venezuela. The FBI preventing another terror attack on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Excellent stuff. Leave it there. Don't speak anymore. They aren't going to do it. We got to bring the radio crew back and we're going to talk about Warner and the polls. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We've got quite a bit to cover, and Mark Warner of Virginia, he's trying something a little different. There's no cohesion. There's no leadership in the Democrat Party right now. Hakeem Jeffress, he came out and he babbled at about 3.5 words per minute. Again, William Shatner, Barack Obama style. That didn't go anywhere. Then you tried Bernie Sanders coming out and saying, I do not like it when people are mean to Maduro and socialist countries. That's very bad. Very, very bad. Someone get me my pudding. So that didn't work. Chuck Schumer came out and said, I asked them if they were going to do this to any more countries. And I said, are you going to be awesome anywhere else? And they wouldn't tell me. So now we get to Mark Warner of Virginia. Normally he's just yelling in committee hearings, but he started his statement today and it was kind of all right at first. And then it just went straight down to hell.
Chuck, let me also say one of the things that came out of the briefing yesterday was how extraordinary our military has been to execute this mission under fire without the loss of a single American life. It's really extraordinary.
Stop. Be done. Take the applause.
Correct. Circle gets a square.
And everyone's happy. No one would be grumpy if that's where you stopped. I mean, except for Buddy Santos. But does he stop there? No. He gets out the calculus. So he's going to tell you that he's figured it out. He's discovered a secret. He's done the mathematics.
And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs made clear, every component of the military was used. Because what this was a military action. And it is not the notion that the administration has put forward that somehow this is simply a legal action serving a warrant.
So here's his argument. He says that because the military was involved, this means that it's not a legal action, it's a military action. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. The military gets to be involved in the enforcement of federal law. And when you're outside of the United States, oftentimes the military is needed to go in and get things. There's an entire wing of the Department of War and the Department of State that are kind of like built to do this exact thing. Yeah, shocker. Guess what? The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, they know how to work hand in hand with the Army. They better. With how many E4s are high every dang day, you bet. I'm sorry, a little E4 mafia joke there. We'll let Warner dig himself a hole here.
It's absurd. It doesn't pass the smell test.
I smelled it, and it didn't smell like Febreze to me.
And the ironic thing is here, they have used the argument on attacking the so-called drug boats as military action, as opposed to legal enforcement, while this supposedly was simply a legal enforcement.
Okay. The issue with this line of argument, first of all, if you're explaining, you're losing. That's the rule in politics. If you have to get out there and go, well, actually, if you look at the red yarn I stretched across this corkboard, then you're losing. And by the way, it should be pointed out here that things can be legal or military actions depending on the circumstance. Yeah, boats sailing to the United States with tons of drugs or precursor chemicals, no fishing rods in sight, no live well, a lot of modified engines trying to go as quickly as they can. Yeah, that military target, sure. Joe Biden increased the bounty on Maduro's head. What did you think that bounty meant? Essays? Dreams? Losers. I'm incredibly amazed how people don't realize that the United States has sent in forces before to capture people. Barack Obama did it all the time. And then he'd turn around and drone strike a civilian wedding. Isn't that right, Michelle? I just don't think that this works. And the polling data shows this isn't working with Americans either. Because Americans, according to Harry Ensign's data, they kind of like it when America's freaking awesome.
Okay, U.S. military ousting Maduro. Pre-ousting, what you saw was the clear plurality of Americans opposed at 47%, just 21% support. Come over to this side of the screen. After the ousting, look at that. The support through the roof. Now we're talking about 37%, well within the margin of error right here of the opposition, 38%.
Now, we're going to get to some of the outsized data here. The reason that more Americans are in support of this is twofold. Now, Ben Shapiro over at the Daily Wire had an excellent description on this today about Iraq syndrome, like the Vietnam syndrome. After the Vietnam War, Americans were really, really depressed. We didn't think that we could just go in and do whatever we wanted anymore. Then the Gulf War came in, and it was incredible. Play the Macarena theme slowly. Awesome. And then the Iraq and Afghanistan disasters happened because idiot diplomats decided it was a nation-building campaign. And it turns out when you're not doing that, then instead you're doing targeted strikes and you're winning. Americans like winning. Kyle Madden and I here with Turning Point USA, we've talked about this quite a bit. Americans like to win, period. That's why when Trump says, you're going to get tired of winning, this is why it continues to come up. They like it. And the polling data goes north for Trump since then.
It turns out Americans like what they deem to be successful foreign policy operations. And in this case, they view the ousting of Maduro, at least up to this point, as a successful one, and therefore the support way up.
Yeah, before underwater, now basically even. What about the idea of putting Maduro on trial here in the United States?
Yeah, you know, part of the reason why I think that the success number is way up, and you saw it here, what was it? It was 26 points in favor of opposition, and now within the margin of error, is because they simply don't like Nicolas Maduro. And in fact, they believe that he should be on trial for drug trafficking. Look at this.
This is the secret, guys. 50% in favor 14% oppose.
50% of Americans favor compared to just 14% who oppose. So there are very few Americans here who oppose it. Even among Democrats, the opposition number is below, get this, just 24%, is below 25%. So this is something that unites Republicans. It divides Democrats. And at this particular point, support for the operation way up. And in terms of those who favor the drug trafficking trial for Maduro, that is a clear plurality.
Now, I want to be very clear because I don't want to belabor this point. We have other news to get to, especially kind of on the broader front of news today. The idea that Democrats believe that because some people may be unsatisfied with certain things around the country and the world right now, that this means that it's going to cripple Trump. No. Whoever goes into the midterm year the cockiest loses. Almost always. Right now, it's what we have. We have a lot of Democrats going, oh, it's over, it's in the bag, we can totally get it, then the trends, we're going to do it. If Republicans are uniting and Democrats are deeply divided, you have Mark Warner saying something different than Chuck Schumer, saying something different than Amy Klobuchar, before she tries running for governor. Boy, that'll be a wild seat out of Minnesota. Talk about some rough Minnesota Senate shenanigans. And then beyond that, you have now this data showing a huge split on the left. They can't unite over the healthcare situation because it's rife with fraud. They can't unite over the foreign policy situation because it looks really, really bad to not super online obsessed Americans. I mean, what, do Democrats really think that support from Canada or Europe is going to pull the midterms for them? No, it's not. Now, on to some of the other news of the day. Senator Mark Kelly, big senator from Arizona, he's also throwing fits out in public, and it's really embarrassing because he was out there saying, hey, any orders that you don't want to disobey, any orders that you enlisted E1, E2, that you, private or seaman, you think that this order is illegitimate, is illegal, don't follow them, which is not how you do that in the military. And it also undermines leadership and sows distrust, which is against the law and against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And so Secretary of War Hegseth and the military looked into the actions and the words of Senator Mark Kelly and said, we find that, we all knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing. And so now we're going to bump you down a rank post-retirement. So instead of being an 06, a colonel in the Army, but a captain in the Navy, bumping him down probably to 05. That would be a commander rank. And Mark Kelly is ravenously angry over this. And it doesn't look good because the media is not totally letting him get away with this either. Because even some in the media, like Jon Stewart, know Americans really don't like the cartels and Venezuela's socialist dictator.
It's not complicated. If a reasonable person would think that this thing that they are asking me to do is illegal, you have an obligation. It's not an option. You have an obligation not to follow those orders.
Now, again, two different things here. If someone says, okay, your orders are to go in and mow down all of the children. Your orders are to strike this wedding full of women and children. Yeah, I mean, there can be some considerable concerns there. The problem is it's not always that black and white, boys and girls. Just because someone on the Democrat side of the aisle says, hey, that guy that's clearly not fishing, oh, he's just an innocent guy out joyriding towards Trinidad from Venezuela. No. And again, what in the world does reasonable mean here? The idea, I'm just going to say, if you're reasonable, you'll disobey any order I don't like. That's not an argument one can make.
The boat strike's illegal.
Well, so I've been asking this question.
Sorry, Jon Stewart's response then, well, then are the boat strikes illegal?
Not to follow those orders.
So are the boat strikes illegal?
Well, so I've been asking this question for a long time. I'm on the Armed Services and the Intelligence.
You catch how quickly that shifted? Radio crew, we got to send you to commercial. We're going to talk a little bit more about this on the live stream side of things. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, while they're on commercial break, notice how quickly he starts backpedaling? Well, are those orders illegal? Because if he says yes, he, as a retired officer who's trying to undermine, has to make a pretty darn good case as to why they're illegal. They're not. He can't do that. So he's like, well, I've been asking questions. Ah, yes, the Candace Owens defense. That always works out great.
Committee. Right. They have some complicated legal rationale, 40 pages of why these are legal. It's questionable at best. And if
it's questionable at best, then why are you undermining? Why wouldn't you just say, I think that lawyers in the military should take a really good look at this. I think the American people should call their representatives and senators and bring in military officials to explain themselves. See, the cool thing about the Constitution is there's kind of a mechanism built in place to deal with this. But if you just out there and go, hi, I'm Mark Kelly. I was in the military. If you don't agree with something, it's probably illegal. Vote for me and give me money. I'm Mark Kelly. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't. Even if you're an 06, we all know the old man, be a captain in the Navy or a colonel in the Army, all of the respect. But you don't get carte blanche to do whatever you want unless you're a skirtin' in the Biden administration. Those are the rules.
But that's my... At first it was fentanyl, then it was cocaine, then it was about regime change, then it was about oil.
I understand.
So...
But what
The boat strikes did not go through a different series of events, though. We didn't talk about regime change with the boats. The question was about the boats. And he's like, well, it was about then Twister told me to put my left hand on red, and then I put it in and out and shook it all about. I don't know.
Do you see my point?
I totally see your point.
I don't.
But
I
our
don't know.
point, our point is to members of the military who don't get reminded of this often.
Why?
When something is clearly unlawful, you have an obligation not to follow those orders.
Now, I'm going to be real with you here. At Benning, I received explicit instruction on when the entire legal questions came into play. At Buckner, I received explicit instruction. As a plebe, I was lectured by an ethics professor at West Point. Here are the rules. Here's what you do. These are the procedures. And by the way, not just in the uniformed military side of things, but also in the private contractor business. These are the rules. This is what's legal. This is what's not illegal. If the State Department or the Pentagon is contracting with an agency, then there are rules. He acts as though there are a bunch of toddlers out there who aren't going to know whether to follow an order or not, as though they're going to be seduced by the coolness. I mean, I'm sorry. The idea that the military is enthusiastically in support of not being held down and shot by foreign forces and allowed to operate in the way that Americans believe that this should go. Now they're going to flip this around and say, well, actually, it's really bad. Stupid. It just doesn't resonate with Americans. Now, I am going to talk very, very briefly here about a product. I'm very, very, very careful when it comes to ad reads and things. And so we're going to talk about something here in just a couple of seconds regarding a product that I've used. And we'll get to that in a couple of seconds. But I want to talk January 6th stuff before the show closes out. So don't go anywhere. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, I've put it off long enough. I'll show you pictures and videos of Venezuela shooting at their own Air Force here in a couple of seconds. First, January 6th is upon us. Did you leave out a pipe bomb for Ray Epps? Okay, maybe not that joke. Perhaps is funny. Did you or someone that you love leave out a lectern for Buffalo Man? Just keeping the tradition alive, folks. Well, the Democrats showed up and they delivered. Again, they think, well, man, if we don't have anything to run on with healthcare because of the fraud, we don't have anything to run on with the economy because we suck, and we keep supporting dictators and calling them very friendly, austere scholars or cartel members, Maryland man, then what do? You get Chuck Schumer out there again. After all, what you really should do if you have a guy with a 0% approval rating, get him in front of the camera as much as possible. You declare a national day of mourning for the 5th January 6th. It's like Fifth Third Bank. It doesn't really make any sense, but they're going for it. Here's Chuck Schumer 5 years ago.
Because 5 years ago today, down to this very hour.
And they put it on C-SPAN too. Chuck Schumer's rant on January 6th isn't even enough to make it to C-SPAN 1. He's lucky he didn't hit ESPN 3 or the Ocho ESPN 8. Incredible.
The temple of democracy was turned into a snake pit of mob violence.
He's about to start saying that he was going to be Jesus flipping over the tables? The temple of democracy. Ooh, it's exciting.
Its windows were smashed, its offices vandalized, lawmakers and our staffs, everyday citizens who love their country and work here every day, hid beneath desks, feared for their lives. Nearly 140 police officers were injured, as least 5 people lost their lives.
I like this number of individuals were injured in this riot. Again, that part being true. And then 5 lost their lives, as though the rioters killed 5 people. No, not the case. If you are going to say something seriously and take something seriously, do not immediately cheapen it and clown-shonify it by turning around and suggesting things that are not the case.
It's like yesterday to me. I was sitting right at this desk. I had just known on January 5th, the day before, that I was becoming majority leader because we had won the seats in Georgia.
Oh, here we go. Oh, Georgia. Ooh, I don't know if I would bring up Georgia. Eesh. I don't know if I would bring up the 350,000 ballots that shouldn't have been. I don't know if I would have done that, but Chuck Schumer, he's getting out there, and then he does a very exciting Nancy Pelosi January 6th mass. Very, very exciting. It's where the Democrats stand and kneel at certain times for George Floyd. Really lovely. They then had a vigil. Exciting. I don't know how all of these Democrats actually held candles. Some of them, enough hairspray and embalming fluids in them to just go up in perpetual flame. But here you go. And there's no audio. They're just silent. Chuck Schumer looks over at someone. Are we supposed to stand here silently? They're not praying because they don't believe in prayer. Hakeem Jeffries is standing there. It's exciting stuff. There's Mark Warner. Oh, so many familiar faces. Where's Rosa DeLauro with the purple hair? I'm feeling shortchanged. Where's Jasmine Crockett? I'm told she's running because of her color. She couldn't even attend a vigil. Disrespectful. And then they ended, like all Democrat events do now, with a little bit of singing. So they tried God Bless America, which is a really good song. But pulling this out at the last moment, it didn't go the way they wanted. They can't carry a tune in a bucket. God bless them.
And guide her through the night with the light from...
There's Al Green swinging his cane. For dastardly deeds, the second verse. I love it.
From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans.
A nondescript, non-supremacist color of
White with foam. God bless America.
Maxine Waters about to keel over because she's been outside in the open air for more than 3.5 seconds.
My home, sweet home.
Yikes. Exciting stuff. Again, exciting times over on the left. So very, very exciting. Just one small clip to remind you that AOC, who was in a completely different building, not the U.S. Capitol at all, who never came in contact or anywhere close or near any protester. I'll never forget her, Jussie Smolletting her way through January 6th.
I didn't think that I was just going to be killed. I thought other things were going to happen to me as well.
I like the intense CNN music as well. Like it's a soap opera.
So what sounds like what you're telling me right now is that you didn't only think that you were going to die, you thought you were going to be raped.
Yeah, and I did think that. That's just incredible. Good luck running on this, by the way. Huge luck to you. Just to close things out on kind of the radio show side of things, because we're absolutely going to do some bonus tonus this evening. Very, very briefly here. There is a product. I really don't do a whole lot of huge advertisement things on the show, especially because, like a former science teacher, I get kind of like squeamish about advertising certain products. And I saw a product on Twitter, not joking, called PreSleep. Yep, PreSleep. And it's a replacement for melatonin. I do shows late into the evening. I need a lot of sleep that often is a little bit more difficult to come by. And I tried this product out. I reached out to the owner, said I'd love to try it out. And since December, I have been trying this out. And there's also a joke that kind of goes with it online. Not really a joke, it actually works. Where if you do the PreSleep and then also a Sprite Zero, that you won't get up to pee when you sleep. Which for dudes, yeah, that's kind of the bane of the existence. And it works. That's why I'm advertising it. That's why I recommend it. Absolutely. Now look, yes, if you go to the link in the description And there you put in Tony10, Tony 10, 10, you get 10% off. It's good. But were there no code, were I not getting to share this code with you, I would still recommend it. Now, the pink lemonade flavor is sold out. And again, you may say, I don't even take melatonin. I sleep like a baby every night. Your dulcet tones put me to sleep. Cool, that's fine. I'm suggesting that after a month of trying this product, I finally am like, yeah, it works. It's better than melatonin. I don't see the hat man. Take too much melatonin, you start hallucinating. None of that. It's good stuff. That's it. That's the whole thing. There you go. So radio crew, we're going to send you guys off to commercial and get into some bonus tonus stuff because you have not lived until you've seen Venezuela shoot at their own drones in the sky. Just beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Applause for Venezuela. So to the radio crew, it's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. You guys take care. We're going to continue over on the live stream. Now, I promised you some shenanigans. By the way, to the comment, well, if you don't drink anything after 7 p.m., usually you don't have to get up after, 5 times a night also. Okay, it's after 7, and I'm going to be up until like 1 in the morning because of show shenanigans and you wonderful people. So I'm going to probably drink something, like right now, a Sprite Zero. I'm not sponsored by Sprite. I'm not sponsored by Celsius. I could be. Okay, on to the Venezuelan stuff. Here's Venezuela shooting at their own Air Force in Caracas yesterday. Check it out. I will remind you, we were told by who were supposedly very informed people, articles all over the defense industry sphere, all of these wonderful, incredible academics, that the Venezuelan air defenses were, supposed to just be top notch. The Financial Times posted on January 3rd, experts had warned that Venezuela's layered air defense network could complicate U.S. air operations. Why? Because it was made up of Chinese air defenses, the top-notch stuff. By the way, there's a little something fun that you should know about how countries staff their satellite states. When the United States puts its air defense systems, like it supplies things through purchasing agreements to Israel or purchasing agreements to the Ukraine or to Poland or to other NATO states, when we sell things to other countries, we sell them our leftovers first. We do. The air defense systems that have been placed, like some of our early THAAD, THAAD, missile batteries, over to places like in Israel or over to Saudi Arabia would be an excellent example. We give the leftovers, like the lesser versions of things, the stuff that's still running on Windows 98. We give that to them. And it does a pretty darn good job. When China, or at the time the Soviet Union, now the Russian Federation, whenever they give their patron states, whenever they give their allies their air defense systems, it's the toppest, notchest stuff they can possibly fathom. They give them what they are using right now. And the Russian Federation air defense systems and the Chinese air defense systems did diddly squat. They did absolutely nothing. Only one plane was hit. As a reminder, there were 15,000 individuals involved in getting aircraft up and moving in the region. Only one U.S. plane was hit, and it didn't cripple the craft. It flew the full distance, no immediate emergency stop necessary, and was able to land the aircraft and is now back in service. The 7 U.S. military members that were wounded, all but 2 are already back in service, back on the job. Nothing from the Soviet to the Russian Federation to the communist China air defense, what I was told was going to be superior stuff. None of it. Absolutely none of it. And by the way, there's an excellent comment pointed out from Hermetic Signal. We took out their radar. Yes, we did. But it's not like the French coastal radar that you can pick up on shortwave that sounds like a duck quacking incessantly. Seriously, go look that up. That is like a thing. And the actual shorthand abbreviation, by the way, for the French coastal radar is a racist term for an Italian. That's just a fun little fact none of you needed to know. Alas, the radar systems that are in Venezuela were multi-layered. So to be taken out, first of all, the Venezuelans, a very stellar and intelligent regime, they hooked their radar systems up to the main power grid. Stupid. Our own studio's no longer hooked up to the regular power grid. No. So incredible intelligence on the Venezuelan side. Great stuff. That aside, I do want to get into some of the other pretty good news that we've kind of had to float by this evening while we were in broadcast hour. I did tell you that Tim Walz, in his meltdown, that his own water threw him under the bus in an interview, and she did. Here's that interview.
But it's like, it's not about him. It's about he's the other side for a big group of Americans,
yes.
I feel like.
Yes, and I think he was popular during the campaign last fall.
Yep.
And he's still in office, and he was running again, and so it's just kind of an easy thing for them to pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's enough truth to the fraud claim, things.
I'm sorry. Am I just finding out that the audio was cut out over kind of the ad read, or is this in general? Interesting. I'm not entirely sure. We'll keep an eye on that. Sorry about that.
That they were able to twist it and amplify it and whatnot, because it is being dealt with. They were just able to frame it in a way that benefited them.
It's gotten under people's.
Excellent, exciting times. Again, I'm not really sure why there was a bit of an audio issue. There may be some issues with YouTube connecting the streaming service side of things. They've been having a couple of difficulties lately. Moving on, because when your daughter says, well, yeah, there was fraud there, but then those Republicans, they pounced and they seized and they twisted it together, or there was fraud and you got caught. You don't want to get caught for fraud? Don't do fraud. Cool tips here on the Tony Kinnett cast for a better life. I know, I'm amazed. I do also want to share with you a clip of Tim Walz losing his mind that the federal government is not releasing all of the emails of whistleblowers who Tim Walz spent a decade going after. So he's very upset about this as well. Check it out.
That they committed fraud. We have a requirement that the House run an audit, which they did not do.
No, she did. You went after her. You tore into the state legislature auditor. We've talked about this on the show numerous times. You went after the state position. You say, well, why didn't anyone conduct an audit? That's a question federal investigators will be asking you, Timmy.
You are the gatekeepers on this.
You're the gatekeeper on this. You're the governor. You're the chief executive.
Demand that there's data practices, and if they have emails showing that I have committed fraud, you should get those.
And they will. That's what the whole federal investigation and the whole probe thing is into. The question I have is, why aren't you turning over your emails right now? Why do we have to go through the FOIA conga line here and wait for months and months and months and deal with exact word and Boolean operators so that your office staff has to dig through the treacherous depths of Microsoft Outlook 2008 in order to access your emails? Why don't you turn them over, Hillary?
Why aren't they putting them out there? Why aren't they turning them over to prosecutors? And right now, they are hiding behind a veil of innuendo. They're protecting.
Oh, a veil of innuendo. Be careful there, man. No need to get sexual.
The biggest fraudster in the White House. They are unwilling to acknowledge that January 6th was an insurrection. They are unwilling to stand with
January
Melissa
6th.
Hortman's children.
Okay, so then he brings up Melissa Hortman because Trump has called certain things suspicious regarding Tim Walz's connection to the Melissa Hortman and her husband's murder. It's a rough thing to watch a man just melt into a sniveling puddle. I will say regarding the Hilton scandal in Minneapolis, it was an independent-run chain called the Hampton Inn Lakeville in Minnesota. It has now been terminated from the government lodging program by the General Services Administration after staff at the Hampton Inn Lakeville had started canceling immigration customs enforcement reservations. And Hilton, I believe, help me out with this, Kyle. Was it that they cut off the hotel chain from like the Hilton Association, or you said there were certain people? Do you know anything? I thought you said something like you knew a little more about
what
that.
ended up happening was Hilton put a statement out saying they're looking into it and that they apologized for these actions and that they had reached out to the owners of that specific Hilton. That was the release they put out, and I believe since then they have now taken away their connection or their partnership.
I'm just amazed that you would think you can get away with this kind of stuff. Why doing these kinds of stunts just to create a backlash that a company doesn't want to deal with right now? It's not the move. Now, the General Services Administration is not the only group that's actually doing a couple of things. We got a chance to actually sit down with Martel, some really, really good information regarding the Department of Health and Human Services not waiting around on the congressional bill banning transgender care for minors, and saying that from the Department of Health and Human Services, here's the deal. You do any kind of transgender, whether it's hormonal treatments with minors or, God forbid, the mutilation and sterilization surgeries, you're not getting a drop of federal funding of any kind. So I think you'll appreciate that, at least. We're moving in the right direction. The conversation that consistently is on the lips of every American is, what is the government doing right now to fulfill the campaign promises? It's midterm year. It's time to get things moving. It's time to get things done. And believe it or not, the Harmeet Dillon crew, of course, she's currently in the Department of Justice, but her Center for American Liberty and, the CEO of said organization, Mark Trammell's here to talk a little bit about one of the things that they are doing right now, the Department of Health and Human Services, to crack down on the creeps who are going after kids in hospitals. Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The Center for American Liberty, we're thrilled what the Department of Health and Human Services has just done, cutting off this funding stream to hospitals that are abusing children. And I don't use that word lightly. I say that as informed by the clients we represent. So one of my clients is Chloe Cole. Chloe Cole was, I think most of your viewers are probably familiar with Chloe. She was at HHS with this historic announcement, sharing her story and celebrating this enormous win for the protection of children as well. But the Center for American Liberty, we represent Chloe and other detransitioners who are fighting back, who were given puberty blockers, who were given testosterone, off-label cross-sex hormones as young as 12 years old. So many of these kids also went through double mastectomies, radical double mastectomies as 13, 14, 15-year-olds, completely unable to give consent to these procedures. So we've been fighting this for years. In fact, we filed Chloe's case 3 years ago. For 3 years, we've been fighting over this threshold question, which as a litigator is like super, you kind of nerd out on it, but it's this threshold question of whether the case is going to be decided in arbitration or in a very public trial. Obviously, Kaiser and the hospital system wants this to be an arbitration. They have fought tooth and nail. They've lost at the district court level. They've lost multiple times at the Court of Appeals. And finally, as of this week, this case is definitively going to trial. Trial has been set. It's not till April of 2027. But this is a very, very positive thing to look forward to, because finally, these barbaric physicians who are profiting off of mutilating young kids are going to be held accountable.
Obviously, we've heard the world organizations that have paraded this around as some kind of a horrible, evil act. How could you possibly fight against the physicians lining their pockets with the transgender surgery nonsense? Those groups are on the heels anyway. But of course, with the Department of Health and Human Services actually going through and cutting off the federal funding from a lot of these hospitals and private practices that are taking federal grant money in different maneuvers or different avenues. Walk us through a little bit. How much do these hospitals that perform these procedures actually rely on the federal money? Is this going to be a slight inconvenience for them, or is this going to be a 5-alarm fire they have to address immediately?
Yeah, no, I think it's that 5-alarm fire. I think it's devastating because if they're going to receive Medicare, Medicaid funding, they cannot also be be abusing children. It's very simple.
Right.
And you know, for these, it's activists, it's political scientists. It's not real scientists. It's political scientists and activists who have infiltrated these regulating bodies like WPATH, and who are then giving and setting these medical standards for actual doctors who are treating actual patients. The whole system is rigged. And so Health and Human Services stepping in and saying, look, for kids, for people under the age of 18, they need to understand the nature and consequences of what they're doing, right? And we don't allow kids to get behind the wheel of a car. We don't allow them to sign a check or even buy a cigarette. But at the same time, you have hospitals that are making hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars for giving these kids this prescription pad and affirming a mental illness. There's nothing loving about that. There's nothing compassionate about that. At a minimum, and I think this is what HHS has done, is saying at a minimum, you have to be an adult to make these highly consequential decisions, these medical decisions that are irreversible. After a child has a double mastectomy, that amputation cannot be undone. So at a minimum, they have to understand the nature and the consequences of what they're doing. And all of those people out there who criticize this, it really makes you wonder why. Why would anyone in their right mind criticize protecting kids from being pushed through this pipeline that often starts on social media, that is compounded in the classroom and ends in the operating room? We should be protecting children. That's what HHS is doing, and that's what the Center for American Liberty is doing as well.
Kind of last question, because of the amount of fraud coming from organizations or states that refuse to report statistics on how they are using federal dollars. Do we see hospitals also trying to obscure information from the federal government so they can continue to perform certain surgeries? So in the same way, maybe that they classified everything as a COVID-related illness during the pandemic, what now are we seeing? Are they going to try to say, oh, this is, psychological affirmation intervention? What are they going to do here, at least maybe, to try to get around this? Because they will try to get around it.
Yeah. I think historically that lack of uniform, there was not much uniform way of coding, right? And I think so many of these hospitals have really gotten around what they're doing by coding things a certain way, just like you described. I think moving forward, that's going to be a lot different. And I think moving forward, because if they're caught red-handed doing this, they're going to lose funding, because there's so much teeth in losing funding. I think they're going to be hard pressed. In fact, we've seen historically over the last few years, so many of these gender clinics have already started to pause these procedures. I think there were roughly, a few years ago, I think 2022, there were roughly 90 gender clinics, a little over 90 gender clinics across the country that were providing this type of barbaric service on children. We've already seen 30 of those close down, roughly awesome. 30 of them pause, and then within the last year, there were about 30 that remained open. I think what we're going to see those pause in the months and years ahead. But this is also going to be wrapped up in litigation as well. So, executive orders are great. This action from Health and Human Services is great. But if we believe that this is over, we're mistaken. The fight has really just begun to protect kids. And at the Center for American Liberty, we're committed to continuing to fight these cases in courts of law. A ruling on the merits from a court of law has the ability to withstand the swing of the political pendulum, which is why these cases are so important, representing Chloe and other detransitioners. At the end of the day, if these hospitals and these doctors are held financially liable, potentially millions of dollars for abusing these kids, whatever happens in Washington is immaterial. Whatever happens in these state houses can be immaterial, because the risk is going to be too great for these doctors, for these insurance companies to continue to insure. And so we have to win these cases. This is a marathon. I look at it like that. So many people, I think, were especially after President Trump, his initial this past January executive order. We're so excited, and there were so many victory laps, but it's really it's a marathon. We're going to keep fighting every single day.
I think that's very well put. The marathon is where all of the focus needs to be. Quick fixes are just that. They're quick and they're easy to reverse. Again, Center for American Liberty CEO Mark Trammell, thanks for what you guys are doing. We'll make sure to keep in touch with you guys, especially we get closer to that Chloe Cole trial date.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Now, before we're done for the evening here, a little bonus tonus goodness here just for you. So first of all, Greenland, the Trump administration, the King of Denmark and their prime minister are now seeking a meeting with Marco Rubio. So to Marco Rubio, the future King of Denmark and the Duke of Greenland, a firm congratulations from us over here. With your new role also as Emperor of Venezuela.
Answer there, the Daily Double.
2 major leaderships, one after the other. Incredible stuff. Very, very, very proud of you. But yes, Greenland, Denmark request a meeting with Marco Rubio. They're very worried the United States is going to send in the troops. They're not going to. Now, do I think the United States should say, hey, well, tell you what, give us Greenland or we pull NATO? Right now. Yeah, I think so. Well, that would be diplomatic blackmail. Yeah. The United States should own Greenland. Yes, it should. Now, maybe say, well, that's a really silly argument. I mean, come on, we have other things to worry about. I hear you. I get where you're coming from. But hear me out. What if in the 250th year of this country, we did it anyway, and we ended up with more territory than the United States has ever had? Would it be kind of cool? Yes. Is it the right thing to do? Yes. Reason number 3, need I say more? Need I say more? So some really funny stuff there that the individuals from around the world are making some weird moves here. There is a new piece of news here. We said yesterday on the show that the Bella 1, a formerly Guyana-flagged, Iranian-linked, and therefore sanctioned crude oil tanker, was being pursued by the United States Coast Guard. Reportedly, according to a U.S. official who spoke to the Wall Street Journal, the Russians have now deployed a submarine and other naval assets to the northern Atlantic to escort the now Russian-flagged, I know it's not pronounced this way, but it looks like it's spelled marinara, to its intended destination in northern Russia. The United States should absolutely just capture the boat anyway. You don't get to just go out into the middle of the sea and then suddenly change your flag. That also violates the Geneva Convention. The port from which you leave is that flag. When you leave a port, the flag you fly when leaving said port is the flag you must stick with. Otherwise, it's considered espionage, and you can be hung as spies, according to the Geneva Convention. Sorry, folks, that's just the way that one goes. And I thought international law mattered. I was told international law was a big deal. Man, it seems as though Bernie spent a little too much time staring at AOC's backside, and he's full of it. So, excellent stuff. Zoran Mamdani's situation, really, really rough. The Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the Democrat senator from New Hampshire, and Senator Tom Tillis, who is about as useful as warts, from North Carolina, the co-chairs of the Senate NATO Observer Group. That's exciting. The Senate NATO Observer, they have like clubs for everything and in the Senate. So the chairs of the Senate NATO Observer Group and the Cumulonimbus Cloud Society published a bipartisan statement, which just means that they both signed the letter, condemning recent rhetoric by the Trump administration regarding Greenland, saying, when Denmark and Greenland make it clear that Greenland is not for sale, the United States must honor its treaty obligations and respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, who lost Greenland in World War II. I'm sorry, why do they get to pick it back up majestic? We declare what? Because they stuck a flag in it? Why is it there? I thought that we were against all of that, sticking a flag in it means you own something kind of stuff. In that case, then, the moon really does belong to the United States of America. I love this little end from their letter, their statement, tutting the Trump administration over Denmark. With an active war in Ukraine and rising threats from Russia and China in the Arctic, that's right next to Greenland for those of you who don't make me get the globe down again. All right. With active rising threats from Russia and China in the Arctic and the Indo-Pacific, we cannot afford distractions or divisions within NATO. And tell me, dear viewer, Senator Shaheen of New Hampshire or Tom Tillis of North Carolina, what do you think Denmark would do if we took Greenland? Are they going to go to war with the United States? They're going to pull out of NATO right now? Really? You and I both know that's not going to happen. They're going to do what everyone at the United Nations does when they don't like something the U.S. does. They're going to go, I don't like that. And then that's going to be it. Also, if the Russians and Chinese are operating in the Arctic, then wouldn't it make a lot more sense for the United States to maintain complete territorial control over the Arctic? I'm sorry, what are the Danish sending up super fierce patrol squadrons? They're sending up a guy named Bjorn in a rowboat. And he's like offering the Chinese what, like a pastry? Get it, the Danish? Yeah. I'm sorry, not my best of jokes, but not as good of a joke as the Committee on Foreign Observers of NATO and also the High School Musical movies. Stellar stuff there. Again, everyone out there with their angry letters and their nonsense on the Danish side, we'll keep you up to date on that as well. Always exciting to hear what Marco Rubio, who again, some people are surprised. I've heard this all over the media when I do my national correspondent stuff during the day. They're surprised by Marco Rubio. I continue to remind you all, scoreboard, I was not surprised. I said Marco Rubio was going to be fantastic, and shocker, the dude has been pretty fantastic. A little bit of mail time here just at the end. Mark VL11 sent a $2 super chat. Very kind of you. We don't ask you guys to do that. He said Massachusetts should be next in the federal fraud investigations. Absolutely. And if it ends up with Mayor Wu of Boston in handcuffs, the entire United States will be better for it. So with that said, have a wonderful evening. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place here at 7 o'clock Eastern. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Hoosiers.